My name is Bill Shields. I am 73 years old, and in September of 2001, on the 11th, I was working at the Federal Home Mortgage Association, Freddie Mac, in Reston, Virginia, a near suburb of Washington, D.C. This was a federally sponsored operation that I worked for, and I was in what might be called a federal complex.
Okay, so how did you learn about the attacks on September the 11th?
Well, we were doing our typical financial work at the time, and there were a group of people in the rec room watching TV. It was a little after 9 o'clock, and everybody came out to say, we have to take a look at what's going on. We had thought at the time that a stray plane had made a big mistake in DC and run into the Pentagon. But at the time we were watching planes fly into buildings in downtown New York City. People then gathered at the TV to watch. After the first plane hit, the rumor at the time was terrible pilot error. We had learned very quickly when the second plane hit that something dramatically was wrong. A very high level of concern was expressed by everybody that here in a federal sponsored building that we were under attack. When the news came that the Pentagon had also been hit by a plane, rumors started to spread that there were fires all over Washington, D.C. Being in a federal building, everybody was extremely concerned. Should we get out? Should we stay? Should we continue with our business? Part of it was, I can't believe this is happening. We didn't know at the time whether it was a terrorist attack or just terrible, terrible accidents that were happening. But the smoke was seen from our building as we looked towards downtown DC. The level of concern was tremendous.
All right, so what was the rest of the day like for you?
Shortly after all this took place and we realized it was an attack and we were hearing continual reports about the attack, we were told, as was every other federal building in Washington, D.C. and the environs, that we should get out of the building and get home. The roads were crowded with people just driving away from our buildings. We just wanted to get out. Having a building with a federal name in front of it was considered a target. We wanted to get out.
All right, and was the rest of the week the same?
It was. When we got home, it was a little eerie. It got very, very quiet, and we could watch the fighter jets go over our house in, again, suburban DC. And as more information came to us, we realized that we were kind of in the center of activity. New York City and Washington, D.C. were the epicenter of the attacks. At the time, we did not realize that a plane was destined for the Capitol building, and some tremendous heroes in Pennsylvania riding that plane caused the plane not to get to the Capitol building, and those heroes died in Pennsylvania.
Okay, so what images have stayed in your mind from that day?
As I mentioned, looking at the TV, knowing where we are, and watching planes drive into major high-rises that we had been into many a times. Again, in the financial industry that we were in, we had the chance to go into New York, to spend time in suburban New York City, to spend time in the Trade Center. A number of financial companies were in that building that was hit. We were there. We stayed at the hotel in the area. So the images that were in my mind that I'll never forget was just watching a plane hit a building that you were in and realizing that in your neighborhood the Pentagon was hit and other federal facilities were also targets. The smoke that we saw from our building, the smoke that we saw as we were driving home, the fighter jets flying overhead, those are the images of that day that we'll never forget. And then, over a period of time after that, just understanding what was going on and how horrific it was that foreign agents had orchestrated an attack, an incredibly rare attack on the United States, and they were able to produce tremendous amounts of violent deaths to people, innocent people that were simply at work doing their jobs.
What would you say is the most important thing you have learned from that day?
Liam, that's an easy one. We are a free country. Our freedom is based on people being able to do what they consider they need to do and want to do and enjoy the liberties, but it comes at a price. If foreign agents, terrorists, were willing to give up their lives to do damage, were willing to represent their countries whose purpose was to do damage to our country, that they can do it. They can get to us if they're willing to sacrifice their lives. So the one thing I've learned, actually several things I've learned, that we can be vulnerable, but I've also learned that there are people that are incredibly brave, that are willing to step in front of bullets, that are willing to bring down jetliners in order to save other people. So concern is what I've learned about our vulnerability, and pride in America's willingness to protect itself and protect our freedom.
What do you think is most important for teenagers and children who do not remember the attacks on 9/11?
It's important to learn what happened. It's important to learn the reactions of people in the United States to, as I remember hearing over and over again, never let this happen again. And to honor those people who took the steps to make sure it can't happen again.